Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Fractal Cactus. Today we're going to be talking about a recently released indie first-person shooter, Celico. It's currently in early access on Steam. I'm having a blast with it. Unfortunately, it sort of breached containment and made its way to the masses, I guess you could say. It's become quite popular on Steam, and maybe it's sort of left its target audience a little bit. Because of that, people are sort of lobbying a lot of criticism towards the game. They think it's too difficult. They want it to sort of be the game that it's not. They want it to be something besides what it is. I think some of that comes down to the fact that they might not have a very good idea about how the game should be played. And while I'm certainly no expert and I'm still figuring things out, I thought, you know what, I'll share the knowledge that I've gained, share some of the things that I have learned, and maybe that can help everybody at large get better at the game and enjoy it more. And most importantly, engage with it on its own terms and play it for what it is as opposed to what it isn't. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. In Selaco, you have the ability to do a slide. This is one of the first things that you should start to utilize and get comfortable with. When you're sliding, if you hold down the slide button, you will slide for longer. If you make contact with an enemy while sliding, the enemy will fly backwards. If while they're flying backwards, they make contact with the wall, they'll actually hit the wall and bounce off of it a little bit, and they get kind of stunned. So this is a really good way to start combat encounters, engage enemies, close the distance between you and enemies. Not that you always want to be doing that. You can also do this little dodge by hitting the slide button while moving left, right, or backwards. This is also absolutely crucial to the game and its combat. I'm not sure exactly how the enemy AI works, but this seems to throw their aim off, and you would be surprised how much longer you can survive in a combat encounter just by dashing back and forth. You should want to move in and out of cover, but just doing the dash alone seems to increase your survivability by quite a bit. Also, if while sliding you hit the jump button, you'll do this flying kick. It's almost like a bunny hop, sort of. You can only do it once, though, while the slide regenerates. This is amazing. Now, much like the regular slide, it functions just like it. If you make contact with the enemy while doing this, they'll fly backwards. However, this basically allows you to do the full length of the slide without having to hold the button, and it's instant. This is an excellent way to get in and out of sticky situations. I use it constantly to move around the combat arena. I also like to do it just for style points. You know, it's really cool to do this flying Liu Kang dragon kick and collide with the enemy. It deals, I'm not sure if it deals damage to them, but the enemy definitely doesn't want it to happen to them. That's absolutely for sure. Start to use the slide. If you're not using it already, start using it now. Start using it yesterday. It is so good. Like I said, just for the hit stun alone, it opens enemies up to gunfire, and the guns in this game are really powerful in general, even the sidearm, the cricket. So using the slide will basically allow you to set enemies up for more damage in the future. So use the slide, use the dash, move around. I cannot express enough how much you should be moving around. Now you're not super fast. You know, this isn't Quake. You know, you're not trying to schmoove around necessarily, but you shouldn't be sticking in one place for very long. So slide, think about the slide almost like you're trying to start a combo, or you know how in Resident Evil 4 you can shoot the enemy in the knee and that'll allow you to run up and do a melee. Well, this is the opposite. The slide will allow you to start to initiate combat with enemies by stunning them, knocking them back, just sort of disrupting the flow of combat, essentially. Do the slide as much as possible. And not only just the slide, but the dodge as well. I have some footage here of me just comboing this one enemy over and over again and using follow-up shots on him and stuff. It feels really good. It's a lot of fun to do. It's easy to do. Even the flying kick, the bunny hop, jumping dragon kick slide, it's not difficult to do at all. If you ever played Mega Man X, it feels like doing like a dash jump in that. Intuitive, easy, fun, absolutely be moving around and sliding, 100%. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is using the environment. And what I mean by that is Celico has a lot of immersive sim DNA in its blood, and you can interact with a lot of things in the environment. Try picking things up and just seeing what they do. A lot of things you can throw. A lot of the environment is very interactive in terms of like if you hit something with something else, there will be a reaction. If you pick up a bottle of Tide and hit an enemy with it, it will stun them and deal damage to them. And then you can shoot them or follow them up with the slide kick. You can pick up explosive barrels and toss them into a crowd of enemies and shoot it. There's grenades in this game, right? But you don't get a lot of them. However, there are a lot of things in the environment that you can pick up, throw, and shoot, which also explode very much like a grenade. You've got these yellow canisters that are explosive. You've got these like fire extinguishers. You can shoot the fire extinguishers right on the wall. You can pick them up. You can throw them. It's great. Another thing that I like to do is there's like these barrels in the environment. You can pick them up and like hold them in front of you like a shield almost. They can't take many hits, but when you're moving around a very large space without a lot of cover and you want to be as safe as possible, especially if you're really low on health or you don't have a lot of armor, there are things that you can do to increase your odds of survival. I'm playing on the second hardest difficulty here, and I love the way that this game feels. I don't feel like they should change anything realistically. You just need to play a little bit smarter is all. Just think about it. Experiment with the items in the environment. See what they do. Try shooting them. Try picking them up. Try throwing them. Use your wits. See how things interact with other things. I really can't stress this enough. One thing that I like to do is when I get into a combat encounter for the first time, I am absolutely not afraid to let myself die a bunch or reload that checkpoint and try again. Move around the environment, see where enemies are kind of spawning, see what different things that I can do, what different tools that I can utilize, and just trying that combat encounter over and over again until I get better results. There's no like style ranking system, though that would be really cool. But it's more just about me getting through a combat encounter and feeling like I had done a good job. Because the other thing, too, is resources are pretty finite. You know, ammo is hard to come by. You don't have a ton of it. Grenades are really sparse. So using things in the environment to reduce the amount of ammo that I have to use, or like I said, just to increase my odds of survivability is crucial for being successful at this game, especially on the higher difficulty levels. So just experiment. You know, this is not Doom Eternal. This is not Dusk. This is not Ultra Kill. It's its own thing, which is perfectly fine. But it is a bit more cerebral. I would even say, like, despite the fact that you should be moving and, like, trying different things, it is a bit slower paced. It's a bit more methodical. I kind of feel like it's sort of like Samurai Showdown or Bushido Blade in terms of, like, how much of a paper tiger you are. Like, you deal a lot of damage, and most of the firefights end pretty quickly. However, you're also super vulnerable. Like, even with full health and full ammo, you're going to die really quickly. So learn the combat encounters, experiment with things that are in the environment, move around, use your slide, and use your brain. Like, you know, you got this big brain in your head. Try different tactics. I really cannot stress that enough. And I'm telling you, you're going to have so much better a time with this game if you're willing to engage it on its own terms and you're willing to think about it a little bit differently. And something else I wanted to touch on really quickly too is to explore a lot. You don't have to find every secret. I really think some of them are hidden well enough that, like, it's going to be quite a while before people discover all of them. But it's still important to explore the environment and look around because you're going to find two things: components for upgrading weapons at the safe rooms and weapon upgrades themselves. They're these little attaché cases that you can pick up that have like secondary fire and like permanent upgrades for your weapons. Like this here, I have like the dual submachine guns, and then for the sidearm, I have like a double tap for the cricket. I have a burst fire for the assault rifle. These things might not seem like a lot on paper, but they will absolutely A, make the game more fun, and B, make you more of a killing machine than you are by default. Because I feel like a lot of people are playing the first stage, getting a little frustrated. You know, you die really quickly, like I said, but you also you're not quite as lethal yourself yet, and you should still really, like I said, be experimenting and trying to see how movement feels and how the combat encounters flow. And having better weapons and better upgrades is going to make that process easier. The game even says it itself in one of the little tutorials that pops up to be looking for upgrades because it allows you to keep pace with the enemies themselves. Another little tidbit is if you vault over a piece of cover with the A button, you have not invulnerability, but there's a brief period where enemies will have a harder time targeting you. So just keep it in mind. I'm not sure if there's really a way that you can exploit it, but if you find yourself near a piece of cover, like a table or a chest-high wall, and there's a lot of enemies in front of you, mantling over that piece of cover will throw their aim off for a little bit. And once you start to incorporate, you can kind of see how all these things sort of flow into one another, right? How the movement, the dashing, the mantling, the jumping, the sliding. Once you start to incorporate all of these things together, you're going to start having less and less difficulty with each encounter. Now, if you're, like I said, I'm on the second hardest difficulty level. A lot of combat encounters, I'm walking out of there with no armor and 35 health. But you know what? It is what it is. There's a ton of health items in the environment. You can purchase health items from vending machines. So it's not as if there's no way to get good at this. There's absolutely a way to get good at it. I don't know how many hours I've clocked in right now, but I'm certainly feeling more and more comfortable with the game all the time. I also initially felt kind of like, it's a little tough, isn't it? But I just kind of took a deep breath and allowed myself time to try to figure some things out. And as it stands now, this is currently one of my games of the year. And in terms of indie shooters and boomer shooters, I really can't think of anything that I've played recently that has as much of its own identity as this. Like, yeah, it's got a little bit of fear in its DNA. But outside of that, it's really kind of just doing its own thing. I love the pink blood, and everything just feels so crunchy. The cricket is easily one of the coolest sidearms that's ever been in a game. Like, I really mean that. So just take your time. It's okay for it not to click right away. Stop demanding that the game be something that it's not. I saw somebody ask for like, is there going to be slow-mo? Like, please, no. If you want to play Trey Pang, go buy Trey Pang. This isn't Trey Pang. Despite the fact that it is, clearly paying homage to things like Fear, it's also doing its own thing. So let it do its own thing, man. You have to engage it on its own terms. And I'm telling you, if you do that, you'll have so much of a better time with this. Anyway, I talked long enough. I'm going to let the rest of this combat encounter play out. Peace, like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again in another video. Take care.
Not fulfilled with your assigned career. Inquire at your local